Good day, everyone. My name is Bontle Chabaesele from the Tshwane University of Technology in South Africa. Let me also acknowledge and introduce Prof. Justus Ngala Agumba, the co-author of this paper, also from the Tshwane University of Technology in South Africa. Thank you, CITC, for an opportunity to present our paper at the 12th International Conference. This paper is going to be presented as follows. We will start with the introduction, followed by the literature, methodology, results, findings, and conclusion. The topics that are covered are leadership in engineering and construction, sustainable design and construction, as well as the cultural issues in construction. The title of the paper is Exploring the Challenges of Attaining the Required Competencies for Sustainable Construction Projects, a case of built environment professionals in South Africa. The reason for this paper is that construction industry is an important sector that plays a huge role in a nation's economic growth. Not only is it contributing immensely to the country's GDP, the construction industry is also responsible for the sustainable development of facilities such as schools, hospitals, shopping centers, homes, amongst other facilities. However, despite the importance of the construction industry in the economy of South Africa, it is faced with a number of challenges. The environment is affected by the construction activities throughout the life cycle of their development. Buildings account for around 40% of the total carbon dioxide emissions, according to Delasio et al. In addition, the impact of construction activities across the globe accounts for 25% of water use, 30% of raw material use, 42% of total energy consumption, 25% of waste generation, same for timber, according to Seppel et al. It can be inferred that the construction industry wreaks havoc on the delicate environment due to its negative effects. As a result, it is clear that steps must be taken to ensure that built environment and construction activities are more sustainable, bearing in mind the three pillars, which are economic, environmental, and social pillars of sustainable development. Now, to embrace these pillars in the life cycle of a construction project, the built environment professionals must be competent. However, previous studies of Ametepe et al., Agumba et al. Have indicated the challenges that are experienced in the adoption of sustainable construction practices, of which one of the factors is lack of competencies of the workers which are involved in the SCPs, which raise these questions. What are the challenges that prevents the built environment professionals from attaining these competencies? Yes, there are challenges that were raised in the previous studies. However, these challenges were generic and not tailored for specific stakeholders in the construction industry, which led to this study being aimed at exploring challenges faced by built environment professionals in attaining the required competencies for SCP, Sustainable Construction Projects, in South Africa. In terms of literature, some of the challenges that were identified in previous studies are lack of training, expensive training, and lack of time for training. Furthermore, Greenblatt indicated that a deficient education and training system was also an obstacle. In terms of the methodology, constructivist philosophy was adopted for this research to determine the purpose of the study. A semi-structured interview was conducted among 21 built environment professionals. These professionals were purposefully sampled. They had to have experience in SCPs, must have registered with a professional council or body, and must have carried out sustainable construction projects in Gauteng and Northwest provinces. The interviews were done telephonically due to COVID-19 rules and regulations. Now, the data was managed using the Atlas TI Vision 7, and thematic analysis was done to attain the themes and sub-themes of the challenges experienced. Just to touch on the socio-demographics, 4.8% had a diploma, 23.8% had a master's degree in terms of their educational level, and 71.4% had a bachelor's degree. In terms of the experience, 14.3% had more than 10 years of experience in the SCPs, 42.86% had between 0 and 5 years, and 42.86% had between 6 to 10 years of experience in the SCPs. In terms of the results, the participants identified the challenges that the industry is is facing with regards to empowering the professionals in the built environment with knowledge, with skills, and the good attitude to undertake SCPs. The identified challenges are limited awareness of the competencies required for SCPs. Many professionals do not know about SCPs and what it entails. Professionals are not too familiar with sustainability when it comes to these projects, they said. And not a lot of professionals really understand the whole concept of sustainable construction. And that could be with the fact that it is still a new concept. Another challenge that was identified is lack of training or education to acquire competencies in SCPs. Not so many programs available, and lack of practical trainings and learning on the go. No or little experience was also a challenge that was identified. The challenge in the skill set of the professionals made the participants believe that there is lack of professionalism and that there's not a lot of skills out there when it comes to sustainability, which results in problems such as having incompetent engineers. No or little enthusiasm or passion or negative attitude. Participants strongly emphasize that built environment professionals and organizations have a negative attitude toward it, which is demonstrated by the diminished interest, as participants have rightly said, lack of interest. It is not normally a requirement that you'll have all these qualifications. That's why most professionals, team members, don't invest a lot of time and money into obtaining these skill sets of sustainability. Lack of mentorship or coaching from built environment professionals that are more competent for SCPs to a less experienced professional. Corruption in providing training or competencies for SCPs is also a challenge that was identified. Favoritism. They just take somebody that has a political connections and then put them in their system. Lack of finance for training on competencies for SCPs. It costs money. It's expensive, and companies don't want to spend money on training because of this expense, because of it being too expensive. In terms of findings, based on the aforementioned sentiments, the challenges that were identified by these professionals were lack of awareness of the competencies required for SCPs. It can be noted that this challenge is critical, as lack of awareness of the competencies required could cripple the delivery of any project, not to mention SCPs. Lack of training or education to acquire competencies on SCPs was also identified as an impediment in acquiring the relevant competencies. This was affected by the lack of mentorship in sustainable construction projects, the professionals having no or little enthusiasm or passion or negative attitude toward training. Furthermore, limited to no experience relating to technical skills in SCPs in South Africa also contributed to lack of training or education. Corruption was also identified as an inhibiting factor for acquiring competencies for SCPs. It can be suggested from the sub-theme, when the company undertaking SCPs are having a busy schedule, corruption could inhibit the training of its professionals. Finally, the lack of finance for training in SCPs was also established as an impediment to acquiring the required competencies among the built environment professionals in South Africa. It can be suggested that having finance is critical in ensuring the achievement of training or other delivery objectives of a project. In conclusion, this research has identified the challenges that the built environment professionals encounter in the endeavor of attaining the required competencies for SCPs. These challenges are lack of awareness of competencies required for SCPs, corruption in providing training for SCPs, and lack of finance and lack of training as well, or education in SCPs. This is just a list of reference. Thank you, CITC committee and listeners. I really appreciate that you took the time to be here and listen to our presentation. Thank you.